Well, hello and happy Christmas to you all. Happy holidays, happy KFC day. I thought I'd just hang out with you for a bit. I don't know if you're toiling in the kitchen or indeed in a sea of wrapping paper and it's only 4:30 in the morning and you're wondering how early is too early to start drinking. What I thought today is I'd go through my favourite sounds of the year. Most of them are free. Some are sounds that I've made a commercial that I'm proud of and are not free. But also some little tips and tricks that I've picked up this year alongside just talking to you about Christmas and stuff. I thought it'd be really fun if I could go through chapter marks, number them, and then ask those questions back to you. So if you go in the contents in the video description, you'll see there's a list of questions. Just put your number in the comments and of the question or questions you want to answer, and I'd really like to hear your stories, but also your favourite sounds, plugins, that kind of stuff. I'm going to be doing stuff like most bonkers sound, a new string sound that I love, an old string sound that I can't stop using, my favourite pianobook sound, my favourite sound of the year, and also I may end on a secret sound, which is one of my favourite new sounds, but I'm not allowed to tell you where it's from. So I'm going to start with a question to you. How early is too early to start drinking? I remember making the mistake once of having a few, what are they called, Bellinis, Bucks Fizzes, at about 6 o'clock in the morning, which is great because you're not used to drinking at that time of day and it's almost like when you get on a plane and it's kind of goes straight to your head. But it did make me feel utterly shit for the rest of the day. I would say just opening the bottle to air the wine and having that just a little sip, little schnufter at 11 o'clock would be my preferred thing. And I tend to maybe crack open the champagne at midday. I've got to be careful because I do the roast. If I'm a little bit too, how do I say it, pissed, I tend to fuck up. So don't know about you. How early is too early for a drink on Christmas Day? I'm going to start with my favourite drum sound, and it is actually the baron. It's a revelation. I'm going to show you why. Now, this baron is from the Solstice stuff, and I'm so proud of this library. It's been very popular, and I was very scared that it was not going to be popular because it's pretty kind of niche, but I'm pleased at how unusual it is. But what I discovered when working on an episode of Inside Number 9 is it's a great carrier for vocoders. There's something about mid-range drums that change in pitch. They really stimulate vocoders. And one of my kind of signature sounds is pitched drum loops. So what I'm going to do is just turn on the vocoder, and I think I've already got it coming through drums instrument number 1. So something I discovered this year is that you can really mess around with the carrier in real time. So here, I'm going to affect the frequency not of this sound, as in the vocoder, but its carrier. So it kind of gives you two controls in real time. And if you're working incredibly quickly, I was working on this action thing where I really had to hit a lot of cuts and really shape the music with the picture. To have two very versatile sets of controls, obviously you're playing live, you can adjust the carrier filters as well as the vocoder itself. And I thought that was just kind of quite useful. Last night, I agreed with my wife we should start maybe going through some of our, lovely Christmas films you watched in the 80s. So I decided to watch Trading Places with my eldest daughter who's 13 and then my son who's 11 and my youngest who's 9. All I can say is I think we should leave some of these films to euphoric recall. My eldest daughter is at that age where she really kind of knows right and wrong. She's also mixed race. And yeah, Yeah, it was almost like she was just like going, Dad, why are we watching this? As if I'd just put them in front of 9.5 weeks. And it was at the point that Dan Aykroyd came on in blackface with dreads. Yes, we've all blocked it from our memory, that it was a bit touch and go, and we had to do a bit of a debrief. So I'm certainly going to just check these nice Christmas 1980s movies. We were so morally depraved in those days, before showing them to the kids. What would be your archetypal Christmas movie? I've always thought it was weird that we used to watch my mum on summer holiday. It was the most un-Christmassy Christmas movie that was showed every Christmas that I could imagine. I don't know if just the BBC had it for cheap, or if it's because Cliff is just Christmas personified. So tell me, what is your favourite Christmas film that really gets you into the spirits, or indeed the liqueurs? Favourite pad this year was quite early on, and I'm really delighted to say that there's a very, very special anniversary that was only about 8 hours ago.
This definitive Christmas collection gives you everything you need to add festive cheer to your compositions. Explore a range of classic instruments, from bell hits to Icy Glissandi, and whisper soft vocals recorded by a crackling fire. This is what it sounds like. And because creativity shouldn't be complicated, we've made it into this. And best of all, it's free.
It's 10 years old and resulted in one of the worst Christmases of Paul and my lives, I believe. But I'll get back to that later. So Lab's something I'm so incredibly proud of. And so many of you have come on board since we developed our own player. And I'm really looking forward to the 10th anniversary year, telling you all about it next year. And I'm not allowed to give too much away, but we're going to be doing some really amazing things with Labs. And there may be something to do with the Spitfire North office here in Edinburgh and Labs becoming a bit of a thing. But that's about all I can give away at the moment. But it had to be my favourite pad of the year. And it's based on the Selena strings. And I think they just captured it beautifully. And if memory serves me correct, it was made by ARP, but it was basically technology that had been harvested from, I believe, a Dutch organ company. And it's not strictly polyphonic, it's polyharmonic, something like that. Something well worth checking out. But I think they've just captured it so accurately. Tell me, what's your favourite pad sound of the year? And please, you don't have to do Spitfire or Labs or Pianobook. It can be from any developer or indeed one that you've made. Do describe how you made it. Okay, so I've actually been up since very early this morning to go and get trifle materials. Now, trifle maybe is not something that people outside the UK indulge in that often. There's so many different ways of doing it, and families tend to have their traditions, and one family will scorn another for daring to include jelly or sherry. So this is what I believe to be a trifle. What I do is I get stale Swiss roll. It's got to be quite fizzy and stale, fermenting. I use that as the bottom base, and then I get those crispy French trifle sponges fingers with the sugar on the inside, so it doesn't get too soggy, because the Swiss roll is going to be very soggy. I then pour in half a tin of tinned mandarins, half a tin of tinned peaches, and then about half a banana kind of chopped up. I then scrape raspberry jam around all of those fingers to protect them even more. I then pour in gallons of custard, and real custard, not that horrible egg custard stuff, the stuff made with powder. And then that's it. I will often offer up the option of proper whipped cream. Again, not the cream that you whip yourself, the stuff that comes out of a can, and maybe some hundreds and thousands. But I've got a family that half like cream, half don't. But I don't believe in jelly. I don't think it's appropriate, and I just prefer it virgin. I don't like sherry. It's just the kids don't like it. I never liked it as a kid. So for me, it's this slightly school dinnery custard, fruit and cake thing that we call a trifle. What would be your recipe for a trifle? Sherry, no sherry, jelly, no jelly, cream, proper cream from a can, or the stuff that you whisk yourself? Right, on to my favourite epic sound of the year, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise. It was just, for me, the biggest honour to go into the hallowed turf that is Air Studios and put up 56 amplifiers. Absolutely bonkers. Other than stuff like working on Solstice and the Stack, I think one of the greatest honours of my life is being involved in the Pianobook project. And we went on to a new website this year, which is really, it's improving by the day. And if you don't know what Pianobook's all about, check it out. It's full of amazing free sounds and an amazing community. So many of the sounds I've been using in soundtracks this year, they're so inspiring. And we have an advent calendar this year of amazing instruments that some of our top contributors, samplists, have put forward. You'll see that 25 is still on the cards, and that's going to be by me. But when thinking about my favourite piano of the year, well, it arrived yesterday. Dan Keane has done it again, and even Dan feels that this is the best piano he's ever sampled. So let's have a listen. Sherbety glitches there that I really like. Congratulations, Dan. It's stunning. What I love about it is it doesn't sound like a felt piano, but it's soft and intimate. And it's tiny. I don't know how you did it. How many samples are in there? Look at that. Done. So going back to the Pianobook Advent Calendar, I've been hard at work creating what I'm going to call electric sparkles. Now, some people call them thrums. Dan calls them thrums, and it's basically aleatoric, unmeasured tremolandi, slow, and then fast, to create what I often call a swarm, in this case electric sparkles. And what have I done to create it? Well, I've used my Fender Rhodes, and I've recorded it chromatically, both slow tremolandi and fast, and then I put it through the Strymon new Starlab unit, which is really, just absolutely awesome. If you've not seen my video about it, click on the link above. Right. Favourite plugin? Well, I have to say, this is not new news to a lot of you. I've got the most use, and I really enjoy this cassette emulation by Waves Factory. I've done a tutorial that's actually on the Pianobook YouTube. And again, if you want to check that out, click above. Let's take Dan's piano and muss around with it. I'm loving it. Just the idea of tape distortion. When you use it, do make sure you go into here for a much finer pro type view. But I've been using it on so many things just to give stuff, I don't know, that sense that they're happening in the real world. It's not just in the box. Absolutely fab. What is your favourite plugin, again, of the year, or indeed just one that's endearing for you. My favourite plugin or player has to be Dave Hillowitz's Decent Sampler. It really is just, I mean, all I can say is thank you from the bottom of our community's hearts for creating a truly free sample platform that is not operating system specific, i.e. you don't have to own a Macintosh, you don't have to own Logic. It's just been absolutely fantastic, and I've got some news about more stuff coming out on Decent Sampler a little bit later on. So I'm pleased to say that my favourite tapey sound of the year is also on Decent Sampler, and that's by Peter Flint. What I love about Pianobook is these sounds aren't contrived. They're not a commercial developer trying to, I don't know, imitate lo-fi. These are lo-fi. These are Edward Heath, sonic, chemistry set, science experiments, and I appreciate them. I've used this all over an episode of Inside Number 9, and it conjures up kind of late 70s, early 1980s terrible children's music, which is what I needed to use it for without giving too much away. So as I said, Labs is 10, and it leads on so brilliantly from talking about Pianobook, because one of my favourite sounds of the year from Labs was also a Pianobook sound, and it was our second sound to be converted into a Labs instrument by one of the Pianobook samplers. And his 80s plucks from Keith Theodosiou, they're just bang on point. Where's the digital delay? Let's not hang about. It's not some kind of trendy developer trying to imitate the sound of the 80s. It's a gentleman who really knows how it's done. The 10th anniversary of Labs, it's the beginning, and there's a new chapter coming. I know it's something that we overuse, but really is, and it's a very personal chapter for me. Talking about personal, when we launched it on Christmas Eve, which is, it just as a little tip, I wouldn't recommend doing. And basically, this guy reached out. It was the first time Paul and I were properly trolled. This guy reached out and said, "You've ripped me off. You've taken $3 off me. Back in the day, you had to donate $3 to UNICEF. I want my money back. It's not fit for purpose." It transpired that he downloaded I think it was Dulcimer, and he was on something like Contact 2. It may even have been Compact, and you needed to have Contact 4, I think, at that time. And I said, well, we'll work out how to give you a refund, but I'm currently watching Gremlins with my wife, which I think is a great Christmas film. I'm going to check it before showing my kids, though. And he just went mental. And I then just reached out to Paul and said, "Can you help me? This gentleman is struggling with the thing, and he wants his $3 refunded, this, that, and the other." And Paul hadn't realised that I'd CC'd the gentleman in, so he replied all and said, "Just ignore him, he's being a prick." At which point, this guy fucking lost it. He said, "You guys have picked on the wrong Marine. You're not going to hear me coming. You're going to feel me coming," which is a bit grim. And then he started showing us photographs of our front doors. He'd done a little bit of internet research, which really freaked us out. And so Paul and I spent the whole of Christmas going, are we going to get murdered by a Marine? And Paul lived in America at that point. Our Christmases were so destroyed that on Boxing Day, Paul checked out who this guy actually was. He did the internet research in reverse, and he found this picture of this slightly portly 60-year-old with his arms around someone we presumed to be his daughter and his wife outside their local church. And so that was the first time we discovered the true meaning of trolls and what to do with them. Ignore them. But it was definitely my worst Christmas tell me about your worst Christmas. Wanted to talk about my favourite new string sound that I'm using, and I think for a lot of you who've bought Solstice, this won't be a surprise. It's the circular bowing with the close mics on. These are clip mics, so really ultra close. In crazy intensity. Just add a bit of splosh to it. I also wanted to talk about my favourite string sound that is old news, but I just can't get rid of it. And I have to say, it's still the chamber strings flautandos. I really like the Albion 2 flautandos, but for some reason, these just, it's what I write with. Just going to re-attenuate that. Something I have been doing is combining both of these string libraries, so the circular and the chambers, and it's just for me, it makes the strings incredibly convincing. It's just lovely to have that kind of motion and stuff. So what's your favourite new string sound, and what's the old favourite that you just can't get rid of? More decent sampler news. A hero of mine, an absolute saint within the pianobook community, is a gentleman called Fred Poirier. Excuse me, Frédéric Poirier. Excuse me if I'm saying your name all wrong, Frédéric. He's basically developed these scripts that convert EXSs, or Logic sampler, into decent sampler. So you don't have to own a Mac, you don't have to own Logic. He's now done a script that converts from Contact to decent sampler, which I know for many of you is just amazing news. Linked below is a video that he will be releasing today. So if the link isn't there, or it's got some asterisks where it's going to go, come back and check it out. I'll let him explain more. But put it this way, there's 222 new decent sample packs going up on Pianobook today. Just, I mean, hats off to you, hats off to Dave Hillowitz. And please, in the comments down below, congratulate them both, but do check out Fred's video about it all. Just sounds nuts. Sounds that I've made, and one that I'm a real fan of is simply the effort that went into making it. If you remember the film about the GIMP, well, this ended up all over the soundtrack for a film that's coming out in February. It's going to be quite a broad release in Britain called Unwelcome, or The Unwelcome. I think it's just Unwelcome. And the GIMP was all over it, and the director fell in love with the sound. It was the sound of the movie. And this is one sound that I really love because it's surprisingly cinematic. It's amazing. It's such a knackered old piano. It sounds like it's got reverb on it, but it's not. It's been ruined. So let's try it with reverb. And I just love it when it's down here. This is going to be controversial. Yorkshire puddings with roast turkey. My wife thinks it's a travesty, but my kids love it because it's, for those of you who don't know Yorkshire puddings, they're basically like a crispy pancake that for me is a great gravy holding device. And I've betrayed my wife and I've gone out to the shops and I bought some because I don't make them, because they're not as good as the ones that you buy frozen. And I've bought some because I just know the kids are going to really, really complain if they don't get them. So, Yorkshire puddings, yes or no? Next up, favourite sound that I've mangled. And I actually mangled a sound from Solstice. Now, this is something that I hope a lot of you realise, that once you've bought a library, you can resample it and do all sorts of stuff with it and make it your own, just provided you don't put it on sale or put it on things like Pianobook. So for me, I just love taking brilliant sounds and making them 100% mine. So this was taken from a hurdy-gurdy, and I've made what I call the uber-gurdy, but my wife came up with a much better name, which is the hurdy-gurdy. And it sounds like this. I'm going to put some massive splosh, super splosh on. I'll probably hype this as well. Right, talking of bonkers sound, my favourite and absolute most bonkers sound of the year has to go to Beep Boop from Pianobook. A gentleman called Oberlig, and I don't think that's his real name, surely. And its bonkersness is only matched by its ingenuity, which is just insane. This is a rabbit hole you want to get lost in. You can make it stop doing that as well. There we go. I'll link all of the instruments that I'm talking about, all of the sounds that I'm talking about, that are available in the video description down below as well. And this is just, if you just want to escape from the kids this Christmas, you can escape into this, and it's free on Pianobook. So as I mentioned before, the reason I don't start drinking or drink too much early on is because I really have to concentrate on the cooking thing because I'm not very good at it. But the one thing I have worked out over the years is the perfect roast potato. So if you'll let me share this with you, here's a few tips. I don't use fancy potatoes. I don't use fancy fat. I've tried all of that. I've just taken it back to basics. So King Edward, the things you use for baked potatoes, King Edwards, all a uniform size. I bring them to the boil over 15 minutes. So if they're not boiling at 15 minutes, if it's really cold or something like that, just make sure they go into a really good rolling boil for at least 5 minutes. Whilst that's happening, I heat up a roasting tray just with loads of vegetable or rapeseed oil. I basically put an entire bottle in. So we're kind of half deep frying these roast potatoes. I then take the potatoes out, drain them. I add a little layer of flour, salt, pepper, and icing sugar. Not too much, just a little bit of icing sugar. I pour the potatoes back into the pot, and then I cover those in flour, salt, pepper, and icing sugar. I then put the lid on and smash them to bejesus. Take the roasting tin out, be careful, hot fat, get the dogs and kids out the way. And then what I do is I just carefully put each potato on, making sure there's gaps between them. And a real trick is put them down, put the next one down, and then the one you put down before, give it a wiggle. Something happens when it first starts cooking. It cooks and attaches itself to the roasting tin. So if you give it a wiggle after allowing it to get stuck, it won't be as stuck again. I then put them into an incredibly hot oven, 220 centigrade, don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, for about 45 minutes, and about halfway through I turn each of the potatoes over just the once. Now with turkey, you can have that resting for at least an hour. So if you've just got the one oven, which I do, you can afford to turn it up super high, and you have these things which are almost the texture of toffee apples, but they're roast potatoes, and you can just open them up. Obviously, when you prep potatoes for gravy, I hope you do this. Yeah, basically you cut them in half, and you just squeeze them so they just look like kind of alien eggs, and then they become ideal gravy receptacles because of the seal created by the icing sugar. Please tell me if I'm committing heinous crimes, and how do you do your roast potatoes? This is all goose fatty and sage leaves. So we've been going along new and old, and I just wanted to talk about a new application of a plugin I just use all the time. And that is, of course, for any of you who have followed this channel, is Apple Pitch. Now, this sound I love. Got a real tension to it. However, if any of you are listening to it on laptop speakers or out of your phone, you probably can't hear anything at all. So I basically had an entire 15-minute action sequence that just had this just running through, regardless of what the music was doing. Well, and the director loved it, but I didn't want to tell him, oh, you're just not, I mean, on a lot of TVs, you're just not going to hear this at all. So what I did is just create an upper harmonic with Old Faithful. And the reason I like this, I mean, people really don't know about it, so much so that Apple haven't fixed the fact that every time you load it up, you've got to boot it twice so you can actually see what the controls are. So let's put this up. I think I put it up just an octave and then blended it. So it's still kind of sitting underneath. Obviously, it doesn't sound as good without the bottom end, but at least you'd be able to pick up that there was something going on your laptop or phone. And this is something that I think that we really need to consider in this day and age, that we're doing more and more Dolby Atmos 7.1, which a lot of the time will be consumed and listened to out of a phone speaker. What's your Old Faithful plugin, and how have you found out how to use it differently this year? I was going to talk about gravy recipes, but I'm not going to tell you mine. You have to come round to my house to experience it. And it's just, I think about it all year. That combined into the alien egg, toffee apple, potatoes. You're laughing. So my favourite pianobook sound of the year has to be the dictaphone loop synth by Peter Flint. And why? Well, for me, it sums up the spirit of pianobook, which I'm repeating myself, I know. It's about these incredibly fragile sounds that are completely free of any contrivance. This is a science experiment. This is what it says it is. And this is the wonder of sampling and the wonder of sharing samples, is that we get to experience these science experiments, these things that you could never create again, not even Peter maybe, just that moment in time, that mood captured. But the reason I like this the most is because the minute I played it, the main theme of a major soundtrack, the one I mentioned earlier, Unwelcome, it just literally came out of my fingers, and it's because of this sound. And that's something I think we forget when talking about labs, when talking about pianobook, or indeed commercial libraries like Solstice. Is certainly my aim and hope is to make the composing process as pleasurable and as friction-free as possible. It's not just about production. It's about instruments that inform the music that you make, that's always your music, but with other people's instruments. And that's why this is my favourite pianobook sample of the year. My favourite sound of the year totally is, I'm afraid to say, it's a commercial one. And I knew it was going to be nice, but I'm just incredibly proud of how well it's turned out. It's called The Nursery, and it's a mixture of just bells, bike bells, you name it. And for me, it's about coming out of the shadow of stuff like Harry Potter's Celeste and creating that kind of spirit without the association. Stuart Hamilton, who recorded this, is just an absolute genius. We've got some tremolo. So, day 25 of the Pianobook Advent Calendar, and the honour this year falls to me. So, Electric Sparkles, let me get the grains down. Now, when you hear just the electric Celeste, so these are the slow, and then it goes to fast. But when it gets interesting is when you add the Strymon Starlab. I developed this with my sample buddy Stephen Tallamy, and he cleverly has designed the release so the release doesn't affect the dry signal, just the grains. But when Electric Sparkles really comes into its own is in the naughty place. So I hope you enjoy that gift from me on the 25th day of the Pianobook Advent Calendar. But it doesn't stop there. We've got a massive hamper drop of, I've got a note here somewhere, 40 new sample packs. Going to drop today. If you want to just be directed straight to them, there's a special post about that linked below. It's the Christmas Pianobook hamper. What more can this community do for each other? Well, next year, let's see. It's just, I'm so utterly honoured to be a part of it, and thank for all of your enthusiasm. Later in this year, or just at the end of the year, it may be New Year's Eve, maybe New Year's Day, we're going to be doing Pianobook Awards for really special contributions, including that before promised awards to the best reviewers who have really, really worked hard to create reviews for these instruments so we know what we're getting, but also eventually we'll be able to switch the rating system on so that the most popular, the most used, the most inspiring instruments percolate to the top, and we still support people just beginning their sample journeys. Favourite hardware purchase of the year will have to be the Colossus. It's I'm just very lucky to be in a position where I can make these business investments and it isn't just sitting as a pretty backdrop. We took it into the hall and put it through 56 speakers, and we are going to be sampling the bejesus out of it this year. And a very well-known composer got in touch and said, how is it? I said, well, you're a samplist. You're going to love it because you want to capture, you just want to roll tape, because when the magic happens, you want tape to be rolling to capture it, because it really feels like you're using some telephone exchange stuff to make sound with, or to make your speakers move in a certain way. I'd be fascinated to know what your favourite hardware purchase of the year is, again, in the comments down below. And check out the contents. If you just want to number the question or questions that you answer, we'll get the gist. Biggest Christmas fuck up, and what is my biggest Christmas fuck up? Yeah. Biggest Christmas fuck up. And my favourite new sound that I'm not allowed to tell you where it's from. And also, of course, most inspiring Christmas music present I ever received. So let's start on the positive. So for me, it was my Tascam Porter Studio. I think that's what really set me on my journey. It's a 4-track machine. You'd have to bounce down if you wanted more than 4 mono tracks. But it set me on my journey to producing music, not just playing it and composing it. And I think that, I didn't grow up in a wealthy background. I went to a really rough school. But my biggest privilege is to have parents that believe and that encouraged us. And to buy me this gadget I used to do it'd be like, from mum and dad, divorced, play the guilt factor there, but also it's my Christmas and my birthday combined. So I get these super presents. I'm 50 today, by the way. So, my Tascam Porter Studio would have to be my favourite Christmas present musically that inspired me of all time. What about you? Something that someone bought you for Christmas that just created a spark, that created that furnace. So here's the secret sound that I'm not allowed to tell you about. And it's basically the best pizzicato Spitfire I've ever made. Really close image on that as well. So lots of exciting things to come in the new year, really. Biggest Christmas fuck up, Canada. Can't remember the year. And basically, this wonderful girl I used to go out with, she'd not seen her parents for 4 years because she moved over to London and then we met and moved in together. So the parents were really pleased to see her and not too sure about me. I was the kidnapper, so to speak. And we arrived, and it was something like out of Meet the Parents, that basically we arrived and there proceeded to be this snow dump on Vancouver Island, the likes of which they hadn't seen for 70 years. And within, I'm not joking, 3 hours, we were snowed in for 2 weeks. And they're, very healthy living family, and I'm a smoker and could literally not get outside to smoke. I was a smoker, rather. But, I was like 40 Marlboro Reds a day. So I found this place in this converted attic where I could get up and open a window, and wasn't just like solid snow. So I had a few cheeky shroots out there. And then this cat, who had basically was as cabin fevered as the rest of us, just saw his opportunity and just went, window! And just ran and jumped out of the window. And then just immediately fell into the snow, which was about half a metre below the window, but we were on the 3rd floor. And there was just this cat-shaped hole that just went into oblivion. And so did the cat. So not only did I come over to bring kidnapped Canadian daughter back, I killed their cat and took her back to London. I haven't spoken to them much since then. What's your biggest Christmas fuck-up? So again, do contribute, because I think it's going to make for a fantastic thread. Check out Fred's video, check out the hampers, check out the advent calendar in pianobook, and check out labs if it's not something you've got into, particularly those instruments I've shown you today. But most of all, subscribe, because there's going to be some crazy stuff. I absolutely promise you. This isn't just me. This isn't just Spitfire Composer Magazine, essay recordings, pianobook, labs. I know for all of us, this next year is going to be a belter. It's the Japanese year of the tiger. And as they say, if you think it, do it. And I really encourage you to be positive about the new year, because it is, I promise you, going to be a belter. And I hope to help it be a belter for you. So subscribe, ding that bell to be notified. the next time I put a video up. Do put comments down below. I'll really enjoy reading them once I finally get those kids in front of the television watching 9.5 weeks. Okay. Happy Christmas. Love to your family. Love to you. Take care. Have a healthy, happy new year. And I'll see you in a few days' time for the Pianobook Annual Awards. Prizes to be had. Worth dinging that bell. One of those to all of you.